Hi everyone, Paul Meshanko, President and founder of Legacy Business Cultures, filming from our corporate headquarters in downtown Annapolis, Maryland. Today's segment is a follow-up session, the second of 3 modules that are intended for those who actually attended my 2019 SHRM conference presentation called 6 Great Mind Hacks for Helping Your Organization Better Navigate Change. In the first module, we talked about the importance of checking your mindset before the change actually begins. And that was about how to mentally prepare yourself to embrace the change rather than resisting it before you get started. Today's module or today's guideline is more tactical in nature, and it's critical for all leaders to understand this. And the guideline is this: communicate, communicate, communicate. One more time, it's pretty simple, but it's important. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Why is communication such an important part of our strategy for organizational change? What has to do with our need as human beings to understand what's coming around the corner. Part of what helped humans be successful throughout history, more so than other species, is our ability to look at what's going on around us and take that information in and predict what was going to happen next. We've always been great predictors of the future based on what was going on today. Now, move that into today's scenario with organizational change initiatives, and what's the implication? If we simply say, okay, everybody, there's going to be changes, and we're vague about that, what that does is trigger massive amounts of uncertainty in people's brains. If we aren't clear about how the change is going to affect people, then they're left to their own imagination, and usually people imagine the worst. In fact, what happens is this: most people, because we have a negative bias, we end up triggering inadvertently our fight or flight circuits, which release massive amounts of cortisol from our brain. And that cortisol actually does something that we don't want to happen. It actually immobilizes our prefrontal cortex, which is our reasoning center. And so right when we need people to be at their best and their sharpest thinking as we're going through change, we inadvertently cause just the opposite. And that's where communication, your communication as a leader, really becomes important. As we're getting ready to take our organization through change, there are 5 key things that we want to be communicating to our staff along the way. Number 1 is why. Why are we changing? And why are we changing right now? What's going on in our competitive environment or within our industry that's necessitating change right now? Number 2 is what specifically is going to be changing. Are we going to be acquired by another company? Are we acquiring another company? Are we downsizing? Are we right-sizing? Are we going to be just simply restructuring? What actually is the change, and what's the rationale behind that? Number 3, how will the change affect me? Now, you've got to keep in mind, people are pretty selfish about their motives. If I'm in marketing, I don't really care what's going on in accounting, but I want to know, how is the change going to personally affect me and my routine and the things that I'm used to? Number 4 is the timing. When will the change be happening? And if the change is going to be happening in phases, tell me a little bit about that so I can, again, plan. How is this going to affect me, and how quickly will it affect me? And the 5th thing that we want to make sure to communicate is, what's the brand new going to look like? Words are powerful tools, and if we can use words as craftsmen and artisans and help people understand, once we're done with this change, here's what the new us is going to look like, and here's why this is going to be so great, what you'll find is that people's resistance to change drops off a little bit, and we actually find them much more willing to actually embrace and be part of the change rather than fighting and kicking and screaming the entire way. So that's your guideline for today. Communicate, communicate, communicate. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for next week's session, the 3rd of our installments on helping your organization better navigate change. Thanks, everyone.